literally, after my first shift, I was like, I almost messed up and did not go into my perfect match of a field. How did I do that? Hey! So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bernice, and I am a graduating fourth year medical student, as well as a candidate for a master's in public policy. So yes, I'm doing 2 degrees at once, and I'm very soon going to be an emergency medicine physician. So this question was one of the most frequently asked questions on my residency interview trail. And I just had this memorized because this was easy to answer. Why'd you choose emergency medicine? Why EM? Okay, so let me tell you about me. I came into medical school and I never considered doing emergency medicine. It did not even occur to me that EM was a field for me. I don't know, I came in, the ER just seemed like a scary place. It seemed like a chaotic place, and it seemed like a place that I wouldn't thrive. For whatever reason, I had a lot of preconceived notions about the space, and so I just really didn't keep it in my mind. As I went through med school, I had always had a passion for adolescent medicine, teenagers. I just feel like teens need so much help, and there's so much confusion. You're going through puberty. There's a lot of sexual, reproductive help that they need. There's a lot of just bodily changes. There's a lot of social issues and all of these things. And so I just felt like it was a really interesting crossroads. But I also was interested in very young kids and child development. Even my job before medical school, I had been working for the child development agency for children with special needs. So I kind of came in, I guess, thinking pediatrics or thinking something with women's health. Both of those things were kind of on my radar. I pretty quickly realized that for me, OBGYN wasn't going to necessarily make sense, but what was something I could do with women's health or something. But I don't know. I mean, I was still pretty much a fully blank slate. I went into rotations, eyes wide open, just totally ready to go into anything. And I was kind of that annoying student that loved every rotation, but I think it was less so that I was like, I definitely want to do this for the rest of my life, and more so I just loved the teams I was working with. I loved the people I met. I loved the patients. We, at the medical school I went to, we worked in a large inner city public hospital, and we had some of the most resilient, amazing patients you can imagine. And they just taught me so much. They gave me so much invigoration. They just made me so excited about the work I was doing, because it was just so clearly important, and my presence was needed, and I just loved it. ER was not on my radar at all. In most medical schools, you don't do emergency medicine until your fourth year. So, you have your third year where you have your core electives, which is pediatrics, internal medicine, OBGYN, psychiatry, neurology, family medicine, and a few others that are kind of like your main ones. But emergency medicine, some schools don't even make people rotate in the emergency room, but others, like mine, it is required, but you don't see it until late. So it was to the point I was not considering EM, to the point that I had scheduled my emergency medicine rotation for after the residency interview season. I mean, I literally was like, I am not even looking at this field, and I will have interviewed for something completely different, who knows what, before I even see the field, okay? A few things happened that changed that trajectory, and I'm forever grateful that these things happened. One thing that happened was I had several friends who were switching into emergency medicine. And I'm talking about, these are people who, as long as I had known them, which was many years, all they could talk about was being an OBGYN. being a pediatrician, they were president of all these interest groups, and all they would talk about, all their volunteer work, everything, all of their essays, everything was in those fields. And I would just like catch up with them. Like, hey, how's your, OBGYN residency preparation going? And they were like, oh girl, I'm switching to EM. And I was like, what? What do you mean? What? You've never, they were like, yeah, I just realized like this field was really perfect for me. I really love the people and everything. And I was just like, huh. Happened to one person, happened to two people, happened to my third friend. And I was like, I'm really missing something. But I still was like, no, but like the ER is scary. I'm not doing it. Plus, I had a mentor who I swear to you guys, she is the happiest doctor I've ever met. She loves her life. She goes on vacations multiple times a year. When she talks about her life, she is just elated about her job, her purpose, everything she does. She's in emergency medicine. And I was just like, I guess I'm seeing like a little trend, but like again, like that's for them, not for me. Then I had a meetup with somebody who has now become a mentor of mine, who had done the MD MPP, which after I got accepted to the Kennedy School to do my MPP, I met up with some people who had done the dual MD MPP. And when I met him, there had just seemed to be this legacy of people who, when they were doing the MD and the MPP, it melded really well together. And there were a lot of them who had gone into emergency medicine for whatever reason. If they wanted to do like health policy work, they wanted to EM. And so I met one of them one time, and literally the first thing that he said when we met up was, oh, so you're going to the Kennedy School, cool. You're gonna do EM too, right? And I was like, no. And I was serious, because at this point, like I said, my rotation was way in the future. I was like, no, like I really don't think, emergency medicine is for me. This is just a couple months before I leave for the Kennedy School, by the way. And he was like, oh, okay. That night, I went to bed and I had a dream. Like, I literally had a dream. I woke up, and one of my really close friends, Rachel, will tell you, because she was literally, we were together at a conference that day, and so she was right next to me, and I woke up and I was like, Rachel, why am I not doing emergency medicine? She was like, what? I was like, I just had a dream. I'm like, why am I not doing emergency medicine? And she's like, why don't you just check it out? And I was like, okay. Literally from this conference, I called my school and I was like, can you please change my schedule and switch this out and put emergency medicine so I can see it before interview season? You guys, literally after my first shift, I was like, I almost messed up and did not go into my perfect match with field. How did I do this? How did I overlook something so fiercely with such preconceived notions without ever even giving it a consideration? Like, how did I do that? I just couldn't believe myself. Let me tell you why that shift was so life-changing, if you will. So the thing about the emergency room is there are, and this is going to seem really obvious to some people, but I didn't even know after having gone through my whole third year, I didn't even know this. There are so many people that come through the emergency room that you never see in the hospital. So when I was doing my internal medicine rotation, it felt like we were slammed. We had so many people on the floor and we were seeing so many people. There are many multiples of people who come through the emergency room that never go upstairs. And I guess because I had not ever been in the emergency room, I don't think about those people. So sometimes somebody will come in and they'll have something that just doesn't require hospitalization, but there's a lot of richness as to what brought them into the hospital. There was this one patient who really just made the difference for me. So she came in and it was really sad because she had been the victim of intimate partner violence. Her partner had battered her, and to the point that she got a gash on her forehead, just like a couple inches, pretty deep between her eyes. And she was so shaken. She was like, what am I gonna do about my kids? What am I gonna do about, where am I gonna go home to? She was clearly really shaken up, really fearful. And from a medical standpoint, just like as far as her coming to the hospital, all we really needed to do was numb her up and put 3 stitches in her face, obviously carefully placed and everything. So obviously she was not going to have to stay overnight, but there was so much that we were able to do for her. So she's crying. She's like, I'm so scared. Like, you have to put a needle in my face. Like, what if you make me look ugly after this? Like, what if nobody likes me after this? What if my kids aren't safe? All of these things. Like, there's so many layers to it. And we just calm her down. We're like, sweetie, we're going to take really good care of you. We're going to make sure that your face looks okay after this, and we're going to make sure that you have a safe place to go tonight, and we're going to make sure that you and your kids have a safe place to go. And then she calmed down. We numbed her up, we did the stitches. It really didn't even take that long, and she just sobbed with gratefulness, hugged us, and I was like, wow. For me, I went into medicine for all of that came with that. I love that I'm going to be trained on how to do all of these life-saving procedures and do XYZ. Like, that is super exciting to me. But I want the human aspect. I want to see what is it that people are going through? What are people bringing with them to the hospital? What is happening in their communities? And with having, and people like that girl that I just described to you, she would have never come upstairs. If I was in internal medicine, she would have never come upstairs because she didn't have any indication to come upstairs, right? But in the emergency room, I see her, and I'm able to provide a service like that to her. And that is so powerful, and I don't take that for granted. I also love so many other things about it. I love that you get to work with your hands. Like, for me, I loved my surgery rotation, and I left that so confused because I was like, I know I don't want to be a surgeon, but I did love that kind of that gratifying feeling that you get of, you know, doing something with your hands and being like, I have this skill set with my hands that I can do, and I really did love that. But I didn't love the operating room. I didn't want to be in there. And so I was like, what do I do with that? And I considered all these other fields that kind of had little procedures, office procedures and stuff, including dermatology, for example, but they just didn't have that kind of purpose-driven piece. But when I found EM, I was like, oh my God, amazing. Like, I got to sew up lacerations. I can put in chest tubes if somebody's lung has an issue. I can put in central lines if we need to get medication into them and into their central circulation. If they come in with trauma, we can stabilize them. There's a lot that we do with our hands, and I think there's a lot of elegance to that, and I really wanted just something artistic about like my hands to be able to do healing. That being said, I still love a lot of medicine, and I love the breadth that you get with emergency medicine. I love that I can see people that are having cardiac issues and having kidney issues or a social issue. There's so many things that I get to see, and so that keeps me really stimulated in being able to see it, all of those things. I love the schedule. The way EM works is it's shift work. So you come in at a certain time and you sign, so the people who are leaving their shift will tell you what has been going on, if there's anybody left in the department that you need to watch for, and then you get the new patients that come. And then when your shift ends, you do the same thing. You sign out to the next people that are coming, and you say, you know, these are the people who are left from my shift, so please just make sure that they're okay. And then the next people will take on the new people. But it's nice because you don't end up having to go home and then still be following with the same patients, because you trust your teammate to be able to take on and pick up the care where you left off. And so I just feel like the shift work is really nice, because for me, I know that I struggle a lot, and I'm working with my therapist on this. I struggle a lot with boundaries and knowing where I need to kind of focus on myself and my own healing, my own wellness building, before I then go back in to pour into others. And so I would struggle with something where I'm coming home and I'm still having to worry about the same thing. I really love the teamwork dynamic of emergency medicine, where you do your work, you finish it while you're there, you pass it off to someone else, and then you go home to your own life. And I think and the other thing that allows for is for you to have other interests. And since as the people who've been following my channel know, I have an MD, or I've been working towards my MD, as well as, which is obviously the doctorate of medicine, but also my master's in public policy, health policy, public policy. Those are things I'm very interested in, and I want to keep going on that pursuit. And the only way that I'm really going to be able to fully delve into that is if I have a schedule that's amenable to me kind of having two lives in a way. And that's what I love about emergency medicine. And that's why a lot of people who do health policy come from emergency medicine, because the schedule is really amenable to it. And because you are the front line of the healthcare system. So you see where things are broken. You see when there's issues. You see all of those types of issues. And for me, that is precisely what excites me. That's precisely what brought me into medicine in the first place, is to be able to see issues and solve them, not just the issues that my individual patients are bringing in, but also the issues that are happening in their communities, that are happening in society as a whole. And emergency medicine really allows me to bridge those two worlds, and that is another thing that I love. There are a lot of things that I love about it, but I will also say that there are some downsides. I think EM is definitely not for people who have a few things. One, it requires a lot of multitasking, because you'll have a full emergency room and there'll be room 1 has toe pain, but then room 2 has chest pain and maybe has a heart attack, and room 3 needs a dialysis appointment, and room 4 is homeless and really just needs a warm place to stay. So you have all of these things going on, and you need to be aware, because at any point, the person with toe pain could turn out that it's something more severe than you thought, and may need something emergent or whatever can happen. And so there's a lot of things coming at you at once. You have nurses, you have all these people talking to you at one time, and so you need to be able to focus. So you need to be super organized and be able to function in a chaotic environment, and not everybody likes that. Second, you don't get a lot of continuity with your patients. And so I know some of my friends who really want to do primary care, and for them, it's really important to them to work in a clinic and have kind of their patients that they follow, and they kind of take ownership over their wellness and their health, and they see them over years. And that is tremendously fulfilling, because you can be the person that diagnoses something early on and then sees how the patient kind of improves over time, and be a really big part of that. And so anybody who feels like that's something that they want, emergency medicine will be disappointing, because you really just see the patients while you're on shift, and then you don't necessarily see them again. There are some patients that are frequent flyers that you see a lot, but you don't necessarily see them again. And so I think some people struggle with that lack of continuity. That being said, for me, I reasoned through that, because I knew that what I'm interested in is continuity with a community. And I know that wherever I work, wherever the emergency department is that I'm working, I will with time cultivate a relationship with that community, and I'll see that, oh, okay, it seems like right now there's a lot of issues with XYZ issue. But then if you give it time and you keep working in that setting, you see, oh, well, a couple years ago we were really struggling with this. That's not so much an issue now. We really need to tackle this. I'm really, especially with my policy mindedness, very interested in the continuity of care with a community. And so that's why it was okay for me to not have individual patients that I'm kind of, tinkering their hypertension medication or changing their diabetes regimen and seeing how they improve, which I think is powerful, but for me it was okay to lack that. And then the other thing is, some people don't like the schedule. Like, as much as I love the schedule, some people really don't like the fact that there are shifts during the day, but there's also shifts overnight. And so you might love it if you're working all morning shifts, but then you might have to come in and work some night shifts, and that could be challenging, and some people really don't like that. Some people don't like the fact that you have to work at night, and then maybe the next day you have to work a morning shift. I mean, not necessarily work a string of night shifts and then a couple days later you're switching to morning shifts, and that can be really destabilizing for people's sleeping schedules and stuff, and I totally understand that. My understanding is that when you get later in your career, you'll have a little bit more control over, oh, I'm working only nights, or I'm only working days, or whatever the case is, but that can be really challenging, and I think that that's something to consider. All of those things considered, though, for me, emergency medicine made the most sense. After that aha moment I had during my shift, I was like, I'm so grateful that I found this field. I am so excited for my career moving forward in it. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be in this position. I don't take any of it for granted. The fact that I am now officially matched into an emergency medicine residency, and not just any residency, but my dream residency, is literally like, there are no words. There are no words. It took forever to get to this point, and my journey still continues. I'm not done. But I'm grateful. I'm really grateful for purpose. I'm grateful to be able to serve. This channel will obviously continue to have content about my journey to where I've gotten to today and my journey moving forward. I invite you, I encourage you all to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Join this community. I'm so excited for it to be enriched by your presence, and so I really hope that you join in. And also give this video a like and a comment. That also really helps for the community to be able to grow. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.